Thank you all for coming. It's a great pleasure to be here. How many of you here are students? That's a lot of you. When I first the subject I teach is political philosophy. And some people think philosophy resides in the heavens, far above the world in which we live. I think philosophy belongs in the city, where citizens gather. And that view about philosophy has shaped the way I teach. We study famous philosophers of the past, Plato and Aristotle, Kant, Hegel, Marx, John Stuart Mill, but we connect their ideas with the world in which we live, and I think the best way of teaching political philosophy is to invite participants, students, to think together, to reason, even argue together with each other, with the teachers, and with those famous philosophers. Because they, after all, were contributors to arguments in which we're still engaged. Now, today, in most societies around the world, we're not very good at reasoning together about hard ethical questions on which people disagree. Questions about what makes for a just society. How much inequality is compatible with a decent society? What is a good society? What do we owe one another as citizens? These are big questions that matter in public life, and I think we need a better way of engaging with these questions. So what I would like to do today, if you're willing to help, is to invite you to join with me in a discussion right here in this magnificent historic place about some contemporary ethical issues that matter. Are you ready to join me in this debate? That means you have to be brave enough to participate. Here's the question I'd like to put to you. What should be the role of money and markets in a good society? Are there some things that money should not be able to buy? Now, in order to begin our discussion, I'd like to put to you a hypothetical question. Suppose there is a shop that sells snow shovels for 1,000 rubles each. And then let's suppose there is a terrible blizzard and a snowstorm. Everyone is buried under snow and needs a shovel to dig out. And so the owner of the store realizes that demand for snow shovels has gone up. And so he raises the price of snow shovels from 1,000 rubles to, what would it be? 2,000? You're not a very entrepreneurial shop owner. Let's say 50,000 to make more money. Now, some would say this is the law of supply and demand. Others would say it's wrong. What do you think? How many say that raising the price from 1,000 to 50,000 rubles for a snow shovel after the storm, how many think that's wrong? Raise your hand. And how many think it's okay? That's the way the market works. That's the law of supply and demand. We have a pretty good division of opinion. I would say the majority object, think it's wrong, but a sizable minority would defend it. Let's begin by hearing from someone who thinks it's okay, who thinks that the price of snow shovels can be put up if the demand for those shovels increases. Who will begin our discussion and tell us why he or she thinks that? Those of you who voted just now that it's okay, what would be your reason? Yes, stand up and we'll get you a microphone.
I believe this situation is
First,
normal.
Tell us your name.
Yeah,
Tell us your name.
My name is Daniel.
Daniel. All right.
First, I believe this situation is normal because this is how the market works, and never, anyway, it will raise competition on the market, and we will find some people who will sell these shovels cheaper. And of course, this is somehow a tricky question because...
A tricky question?
Yeah, because it depends on a number of circumstances.
But if you were the store owner, would you raise the price, Daniel?
I think I wouldn't, because it's
you
wrong.
would not?
Yeah, it's a wrong strategy.
Wrong strategy, but you don't think it's morally wrong?
I don't think so.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's hear from someone who disagrees with Daniel, someone who thinks it's wrong to raise the price of snow shovels. Who else? Yes, the woman sitting right in the middle. Stand up.
No.
We'll get you a microphone.
Can I? But I want to answer.
No. Well, first of all, my name is Tatiana. I think it's wrong because it will put lots of people in trouble. And the main problem is that the price was raised to such big extent.
Right.
Yes. And I think the main problem is morally wrong.
But why is it morally wrong, Tatiana?
Because, well, if it was not raised to such extent, I think it would not be morally wrong. So
you could raise it from 1,000 to 2,000.
To 2,000, and it would be okay.
What about 3,000?
Well,
4,000. You can see where I'm leading.
Yeah, I understand you, but still, as long as people can afford it, it's okay. But the more the price gets, the more you raise it, the less people can afford to buy these goods. That's my point.
But suppose even at 50,000, the shop sells all the snow shovels it has.
Well, I think it's possible that there wouldn't be many people who will buy, who can afford that. That's my point.
Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
My name is Natalka. I think it's wrong because in situations like this, people should help out and should really unite. And I think after the problem is gone, if as long as the shop owner helps out the people, after the snowfall is gone, I think that people are on one hand out of gratitude, on the other hand, because they've already been through this situation, they would come back to the shop and buy the shells just for any other situation like this. So for instance, not so long ago, we had a difficult situation in St. Petersburg's underground, where there was a blow, how's it called? So we had kind of attacked, and people really helped out. People from taxi drivers or ordinary people, they
Yes.
They contacted and they were ready to help out, and they didn't take money. And
They didn't take money.
no, and they
So
didn't
you
just
think,
drive.
so let me just see if I
Yeah.
understand the point you're making. That if the store owner does not take advantage of the situation by raising the price,
Yeah.
the store owner is creating goodwill in the community,
Yes.
and this goodwill will grow in future situations and make the community better, promote the common good. That's what you're
It's
saying.
going to be a win-win situation in
All
the
right,
end, I think.
and what's your name?
My name is Natalka.
Natalka. Now I want to hear from a defender of the free market. You've heard arguments against raising the price. I want to hear another defender of the free market. And you can speak, let me emphasize, you can speak in Russian or English because thanks to this machine I understand Russian. So, yes, what would you say?
Well, first, what I want to say is that this is the question of value. If there is a lot of stuff, we don't value this stuff. If there is a demand of this stuff, we think that it's valuable. When those people didn't buy a shovel, or yes, this thing, they didn't think that it's valuable, and the owner of the shop has a right to sell it at any cost when the storm comes.
Whatever the market will bear.
Yes.
And so are you suggesting that the value of the shovel is simply determined by what anyone will pay at any given moment for that shovel?
Yes, it's principally right. It's yes, it's right.
All right, and tell us your name?
Eugen.
Eugen? Let me change the example slightly. Suppose it were not a snow shovel, but suppose the water supply were cut off by terrible hurricane or flooding, and the price of bottled water increased from 100 rubles a liter to 1,000 rubles a liter. Would that be all right too?
Yes, it will be, and I can explain why. Because examples don't matter, the principle does.
The principle does.
Because
So whether it's a snow shovel or whether it's water, the principle is the same.
the principle is the same, and this is a good thing because if we restrict the principle, these restrictions can be extrapolated later when the storm ends.
Right. Okay, very good. Now, I need a quick reply on the water issue to Chal. Do you disagree? All right, tell us why you disagree. Real quick, stand up. We'll get you a microphone.
My name is Tatiana, and I believe that it would be morally wrong to put such excessive prices on the water because this way a shop owner would play on people's vulnerability, and that would be wrong.
But the argument we just heard was the value of a good is determined by what people are willing to pay for it. There is no other way of determining the value of a good. What do you say to that?
It would be valuation of their rights, of their rights on free water, because even if it's water, it's just for human beings to decide whether it's priceless or not.
So some goods are priceless. without a price or without a market-determined price.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. I want to thank everyone who's joined in this first discussion about the price of snow shovels and water. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause, those who have gotten us started. Now, what we've just heard is a clash between two competing moral and political principles. One principle says, the value of a good is whatever the market determines the value of that good to be. How do people value it, as reflected in their willingness to pay? The competing principle says there are certain goods, in this case water, whose value may be priceless, which I guess means a value above and beyond what the market may define. The general question these two competing principles raise is, are there some goods that are priceless in the sense that money can't or should not be able to buy them? Now, how can we figure out what goods should be up for sale and what goods should not, what goods are priceless? How can we figure that out? Are there certain goods that money should not be able to buy? In order to think about this question, let's first think about a similar but different question, which is, are there some things money can't buy, even if it tries? Are there? Can you think, just shout out, if you can think of a good that money can't buy, even if it tries? What would such a good be? Anyone? Life, love, human rights, air, religion, respect. All right, we have 6 or 7 examples. Life. All right, I get the idea. Let's take, someone mentioned love. Let's take friendship. Suppose you wish you had more friends than you do, but you find it difficult to acquire friends in the usual way. It might occur to you, if you have the money, to buy a few. But you would probably recognize that it wouldn't work. Somehow we sense that the money that would buy a friend dissolves the good we seek. A bought friend wouldn't be the same as a real one. But many goods are not of this kind. Consider human organs, kidneys, for example. Every year, thousands of people die waiting for a kidney for transplantation. Some economists have proposed a solution, a free market solution, a global market in kidneys to increase the supply. Let people buy and sell kidneys if they want to. Now, how many here would be in favor of such a market to increase the supply of kidneys, a free global market in kidneys? And how many would be opposed? Some people didn't vote. I suspect. Now, notice this. A kidney, unlike a friend, can be bought in the sense that the good you seek is not destroyed by the buying or the selling. A bought kidney will work assuming it's a good biological match, even though it was bought. So it's not like friendship. The money doesn't dissolve or destroy or corrupt the good. So those of you who object to a market in kidneys must object not because the money will destroy the good, but for some other reason, for some moral reason. Perhaps you think that a global market in kidneys would involve effectively coercing poor people who are desperately poor and need the money. Maybe you think it's not truly a free exchange. Or maybe you think that buying and selling kidneys is contrary to human dignity. That might be another objection. So there are some things that money can't buy even if it tries, like friendship. There are other things whose buying and selling may be morally controversial, like kidneys, where we have to work through the moral arguments in order to decide whether money should be able to buy them. Now, there are some goods that are intermediate, halfway between the two. Money can't buy friendship, but it can buy, it seems, expressions of friendship. Consider a wedding toast. You know, when somebody gets married, maybe some of you have had the experience. Your best friend is getting married and invites you to give a wedding toast at the wedding. Have some of you had that experience? And it can be, if you're not comfortable with public speaking, it can be a nerve-wracking, anxiety-producing experience. But now there's help. There are online companies that will sell you, that will write your wedding toast for you for a fee. Have you heard of these online companies? Maybe not. You can go online, you can enter some information about your friend, about the couple, about how they met, about how long you've known them. You can say whether you want a funny wedding speech or an emotional speech, and you will get a custom-written wedding speech. For how much do you suppose? What do you think it costs? $100? $20. This is a custom-written wedding speech. It's not $1,000. It's $149 plus shipping and handling. A custom-written wedding speech. Now, so it would seem that a wedding speech is a good that money can buy. You can go on this website and buy one. Or is it? Is a paid wedding speech, a bought wedding speech, does it have the same value as one you write yourself? Suppose it were your wedding and your best friend gave a moving wedding toast that brought tears to your eyes and to the eyes of everyone in the room. And then later, you learned he had bought it online for $149. Would that change the meaning or the value of the wedding toast? Well, probably it would, wouldn't it? Or it wouldn't. You would say you got a bargain. Well, here's another way of thinking about it. Suppose you bought the wedding toast online for $149, and as you stood up to give it, would you announce? You would say, by the way, the speech I'm about to give, I bought online for $149. Probably you wouldn't, which signifies that though it's a good that can be bought, it doesn't quite have the same value. Some deception, a certain amount of deception is required to make it work. Do you disagree? All right, let's where are the microphones? Sorry. Okay.
So I think if someone who's reading the speech sincerely believes in what it's written there, then it's okay. It's almost like an authentical speech. Because political leaders often read speeches that were, composed for them. And it's okay, like everyone does this, I guess, in politics.
Right. And would you mind having your wedding speech turned into a paid political announcement, so to speak?
I don't know, it's hard to say. Maybe, if the person agrees with what is written in the speech, then probably it's okay. It's just a fancy way to say what he really feels inside, but just he can't say that in a fancy way.
Right.
That's what I think.
Thanks. There's a woman toward the side with your hand up. Do you... All right, go ahead. Do you disagree?
Нет, я не согласна, потому что если человек действительно дружит, то он должен от чистого сердца, неважно, насколько он хорошо или плохо напишет, но главное, чтобы он верил в то, что говорит, и пусть даже это будет простая какая-то фраза, но это будет фраза поддержки, это будет хорошо, потому что это будут настоящие слова, настоящая дружба. Но, на мой взгляд, это так лучше будет.
Okay. What about that? I think a lot of people agree. Wait, tell us your name. Tell us your name.
Anya.
Anya.
Yeah.
All right. So Anya feels that the value of this bought somewhat Anya believes that this bought somewhat inauthentic wedding speech would be less, the value would be in a way diminished or even corrupted by the artifice of it. So we have two different views about what the good or the value of the wedding speech consists in and whether money would corrupt it or not. I'd like to take an example to test these competing ways of thinking about goods and about markets. To consider a case about teaching and learning. There are many schools that struggle to motivate academic achievement among students, especially students who may come from families that did not encourage from an early age studying and reading and doing homework. And some of these schools have tried experiments to motivate kids to study hard, to get good grades, to do well on exams, to read books, by paying them. They've actually tried this in some US cities. $50 for an A, $35 for a B. In Dallas, Texas, they have a program that pays young kids, 8-year-old kids, $2 for each book they read. A cash incentive to get the kids to read. Now, the goal is clear: to increase reading. Let's take that example. Now, let's suppose that you are the head of the school and you very much want to increase students' reading of books. And this proposal is brought to you. Let's assume it's brought by an organization or a foundation that will even provide the money to pay the kids the $2 for each book. What position would you take? How many think it's worth a try? Cash for reading, paying kids to read books. And how many would reject it in principle, would refuse to do it? So it looks like the majority would refuse, though quite a few would not. Let's hear, so the majority would not pay kids to read, but some people would. Let's hear first from someone who thinks it's worth a try. And what would be your reason? Yes, what would you say? Toward the back, further back. Stand up. The woman sitting 3 people in from the aisle.
Я бы хотела, конечно, защитить точку зрения того, что деньги могут быть мотивацией для учебы, поскольку, ну, действительно, в России, допустим, существуют такие программы, и я бы могла привести в пример грант президента, которые выдаются условно олимпиадникам, студентам, которые хорошо учатся. Это, по сути, то же самое, что и платить деньги за книги. Просто это есть, ну, некоторые, ну, разные уровни. То есть если мы платим маленьким детям за каждую прочитанную книгу, то условно более большим, более взрослым детям мы платим за успешно закрытую сессию или за полученный приз на Олимпиаде. И я считаю, что в любом случае деньги не могут быть абсолютным мотиватором для учебы. Если человек действительно интересуется каким-то предметом, какой-то областью знаний, деньги могут служить дополнительным стимулом для совершения каких-то решительных действий, поскольку действительно иногда встает вопрос, заниматься тем или другим, потому что времени условно недостаточно. И если условно государство или школьный учитель мотивирует дополнительно заниматься учебой вместо, к примеру, спорта или вместо, к примеру, музыки, если ему действительно важны как бы учебные результаты поступления детей в университет, то деньги за учебу, они действительно смогут стать хорошим стимулом, чтобы дети учились. И поэтому дети, которые действительно не способны учиться, скорее всего, какая-то денежная мотивация, она может сработать, но ненадолго, поскольку это не будет долгосрочным стимулом. Но в любом случае, мне кажется, это принесет положительные результаты.
You would try it in your school.
Да.
And tell us your name.
Dana.
Dana. Okay. Donna, stay there with the microphone. Now I want to find someone who disagrees with Donna, who will explain what's wrong with the proposal. Yes, down here, yes. And first of all, what's your name?
My name is Gleb.
Say it again.
Gleb.
Gleb. Would you speak directly to Donna?
Where is she?
And tell her why you disagree with her.
Well, I believe it is the wrong thing to do because in this way, a pecuniary incentive becomes a target of a child. And I'm afraid that it can replace a true, genuine aim of enjoying the book or finding new knowledges. And as a result, a child, I believe, will have an image of a knowledge as something only practically oriented and a knowledge as a technology.
We'll view knowledge as a technology, yes, or in instrumental terms, yes, rather than what?
Rather than a value in itself.
So reading or learning should be done for its own sake, as a, yes, value, yes, in itself. What do you say to that, Donna?
Я считаю, что, конечно, мотивация к знаниям как таковым, она действительно хороша, но почему, если взрослые, если работающие, они работают все-таки за деньги? Если есть действительно очень маленький процент тех людей, которые готовы заниматься даже пусть любимым делом, если оно не хорошо оплачиваемо. И дети, в том числе, они не будут читать те книги, которые им не нравятся, если даже им хорошо платят. Поэтому я думаю, что как бы денежная мотивация и какая-то мотивация к знаниям как таковым, которые, по сути, должны всегда иметь практический результат. Ведь зачем мы узнаем что-то новое, если мы не можем это реализовать в жизни, в какой бы то ни было форме? Поэтому...
Let's let Glim reply.
I don't know what to reply on this, but I think that not every knowledge can be used in a practical way. So.
And what is, all right, let's, thank you for that. Let's let some others join in. Yes, what do you say? Go ahead.
I would support the opinion of the lab, and for me personally, I think that this scheme would be hard to apply, even technically, and I'll explain why. So it dwells on the economical law. When you got an economical incentive, so you aim to obtain more profit with the lower applying of tensions, of I don't know, abilities. So for these kids, would be easier to read as much books as possible per, I don't know, some gap of the time without plunging into them, without obtaining any quality of knowledge, and to get more profit, to get more dollars or rubles.
They would read too quickly
to
make money.
Or books which are easier to read, or somehow to get away with, I don't know, with the tension, with the real aim of the knowledge.
So very few people would be reading War and Peace, for example.
For instance.
Well, you could increase the pay for a longer book.
Yeah, but the core principle wouldn't go away just because your incentive like leads you that you would find easier ways to obtain a profit.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Ну, я думаю, что мы сейчас переключились с философского вопроса, стоит ли платить за учебу, к более такому методологическому, потому что если я была бы директором школы, я бы, конечно, не стала платить просто за то, что ребенок пришел ко мне и сказал, что я прочитала эту книгу. Должны быть продуманы способы, условно, как-то проводить какие-то маленькие олимпиады там, раз в четверть, раз в семестр на конкретные прочитанные книги. Есть лист книг, которые дети должны прочитать, и уже методами, собственно, какой-то мотивации.
You would assign the books and then pay the kids to read them. All right, let's go to someone. Yes, go ahead. Behind. Yes. Behind.
Позвольте, я буду говорить на русском. Я мать 4 детей. Дочь 11, сын 9 сейчас. Это старшие дети. Я хочу сказать, что этот способ не сработает с 8-летними. Они найдут способ обмануть учителя и получить деньги. Они прочитают, один человек прочитает сокращенную версию книги, расскажет остальным, это будет коммерческий поток получения денег. Это не принесет знания детям. В этом возрасте это не тот подход.
All right, wait, keep the microphone. Tell us your name.
Alexandra.
Alexandra. Now, have you ever paid your children to do well in school or to read books?
У нас есть опыт мотивации детей при помощи денег. Моя дочь профессионально занимается шахматами, и когда ей было 8 лет, она участвовала в чемпионате области, и мы тогда предложили ей ставку 100 рублей за победу. И вы знаете, она победила всех. Но
so it worked.
Это сработало как единственный случай, потому что попытка провести дальнейший опыт в следующем турнире, где повышалась ставка уже 500 рублей, оно просто не сработало. Это уже как первый опыт интересно для нее, возможно, был. Это индивидуальная особенность ребенка, я думаю. В массовый поток это не сработает, особенно в чтении книг для детей. 8 лет особенно.
All right. Now, the worry that we heard before, stay there, because you have experience both resisting paying children to read, but actually paying your daughter to win at the chess tournament.
Yeah.
Do you think that when you paid her, or offered to pay her if she won, that the desire for the money crowded out or corrupted or diminished her intrinsic love of chess?
Я думаю, что деньги в том числе являются мотивацией для победы в спортивных соревнованиях, потому что победители всегда получают какое-то денежное вознаграждение. Это был опыт. В тот момент он удался, а позже это не срабатывает. Теперь идет другая мотивация.
She has another motivation.
Да.
She learned to love chess for its own sake.
Да.
All right. Well, what this discussion shows, I want to thank everyone who's joined in this part of the discussion about paying cash to motivate children. What this discussion shows is that, on the one hand, money might motivate kids to read books or to practice chess, but the worry, the objection that many people have, as we've heard, is that the money may corrupt or crowd out the intrinsic love of reading or of chess. That's the worry, that's the objection. A friend of mine paid his young children for each thank you note they wrote if someone took them out to dinner or gave them a gift. And I received actually some of these thank you notes, and I could tell by reading them that they were written under a certain pressure. My wife and I didn't think this was a very good idea. We wondered how the kids would turn out. Now, there are two scenarios. It could be that writing thank you notes for pay would get them in the habit of writing thank you notes, and that once they got in the habit, they would begin to learn the true motive, the higher motive for writing thank you notes, namely to feel and to express gratitude. But it might turn out that they would learn a different lesson. I think that's what some people are worried about, including Glimp. That the lesson they will learn is that a thank you note is like a small job, a way of making money. And if that's true, the thank you notes will stop when the money stops being paid. And they may find it difficult ever to inquire the intrinsic good of gratitude. That's the worry. Now, how to weigh that worry against wanting to motivate kids to read or to play chess is what the debate we've just heard brings out. I should mention that what happened in the Dallas experiment, where they paid the 8-year-olds $2 to read books, the kids did read more books, but they also read shorter books, which brings out the point that you made. Now, what this debate suggests, beyond the question of intrinsic motivation for reading and developing a love of learning, is that there are at least two different reasons to worry about putting certain goods or social practices up for sale. One of them may have to do with inequality. It may be that there are some kids that will never be able to get good grades or high test scores, and they'll be put at a disadvantage. But a second objection, a second reason to worry has to do not with inequality, but with a certain kind of corruption. A worry that the payment to read the book will be experienced by the child as a kind of bribe, and that the money will corrupt the intrinsic good of reading. I'd like to test these principles by a different kind of cash incentive, not paying kids to read books, but another desirable end that many societies worry about. encouraging families to have more children. In many places, governments enact policies to encourage families to have more children that provide a financial incentive to parents for having more kids. Now, what about this use of a financial incentive? This is not, as you know, purely hypothetical. Many countries do this. Let's take a vote on this policy. How many are in favor of using cash incentives to increase the number of children that families have? How many are in favor of that idea? And how many are not? How many are against that idea? Here we have a pretty good division of opinion. What's the argument against it? What's the argument against it? Yes. Right over here. Yes, go ahead.
Я не поднимал руку ни за одну, ни за другую сторону. Я так понимаю, что итоги уже более-менее известны. Если семьи достаточно бедные, то стимулирование хорошо работает для поднятия рождаемости, но для богатых или среднего класса это никак не поможет.
All right. Yes, go ahead. Thank you for that. We'll get you a microphone.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Арина, и я хочу обратить внимание скорее не на денежный аспект, а на какой-то моральный. Как вы знаете, у нас в России тоже есть материнский капитал за второго ребенка, и по статистике у нас очень много бедных семей, и у многих такая цель, то, что вот я рожу себе второго ребенка, я получу за него деньги. Проблема в том, что у нас в стране рождается больше детей, но заниматься ими никто не собирается. И то есть эти дети растут несчастными, бедными, ободранными, их никто не отдает на учебу, ими никто не занимается. И как бы от этого зависит еще не только вот конкретно эти дети, а в принципе какое-то положение в стране о том, что наш какой-то вот тоже умственный уровень, да, он падает из-за того, что очень много детей вот, без образования, но при этом родители с деньгами.
All right, let me just ask you a question. Do you think that in these cases, giving a motivation to parents to have more children gives them the wrong motivation to have a child?
В тех семьях, у которых мало денег, да. Если я правильно услышала вопрос, то да. То есть потому что если семья любящая, да, и она будет хотеть детей, им даже деньги не будут нужны, потому что ребенок в семье — это все равно счастье.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that. What do you say? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Ekaterina, and if I remember correctly, our maternity, this capital, I don't know how it is in English, this pay for the second child, you cannot waste it as you want. If you receive it for your second child, you can make better your living conditions or pay for your child's education, even for the first child's education. So it's not the sum of money that you can go shopping and do everything you want. It's for socially valuable aims.
Related to raising the child, educating the child, and so on.
Yes, so I think it's a good point to raise the rate of birth.
Okay, thank you. Let's get someone, a little bit toward the back on the aisle. Yes, on the other side.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Дмитрий, я, наверное, буду говорить на русском. И я считаю, что неприемлемо для государства стимулировать семьи для того, чтобы заводить детей, потому что, скорее всего, это материальная стимуляция, такая стимуляция, которую можно взять и пойти в магазин что-нибудь купить, она не сильно сможет материально обеспечить семью с этим ребенком. Она не будет достаточно большой, чтобы материально обеспечивать ребенка до того, как он повзрослеет, и для того, чтобы сделать его детство счастливым. Поэтому для бедных семей такая мотивация материальная, она будет неправильной. Кроме этого, эта материальная стимуляция рождает еще одну дополнительную неверную мотивацию для семей, которые не готовы к еще одному ребенку или к первому ребенку, но хотят получить деньги. Тогда у них будет ребенок, у них будут деньги, но у них не будет мотивации, у них не будет готовности, чтобы выращивать этого ребенка. И опять же, ребенок будет расти несчастливым.
All right. Toward the back. Yes.
Hello, my name is Andrew, and my opinion is that maternity capital should not only be should not be considered as an incentive for families to have children born, but should be considered as an opportunity for poor families to be able to raise children. There are families in our country, in general in the world, who want to have children, but just cannot because they cannot afford it. And I think the best thing about maternity capital is that it will help those families.
And so you're in favor of it, but not to motivate families to have more children who would otherwise not want them, simply to make it possible for those families to support the number of children they truly would like to bring into the world.
Yes, I would consider it to be wrong as an incentive, but good as an opportunity for some families to raise children.
All right, yes, go ahead. Thank you for that, Dimitri. Sorry, over here, the woman over here. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Anastasia, and I highly disagree with people who think that it can be a motivate to burn a child for money, because do you think that maternal capital is enough to bring up a child? Seriously, it's much more expensive, and I think that it's a kind of support for families, but it's not a motivation for them, just a kind of social state.
And do you think it should be a motivation?
No, I think it's just a support.
Yes, okay, thank you. And the person who was going to speak before, go ahead.
Вопрос состоит в том, что вот всегда существуют разные методологии. Мы можем платить больше, можем платить меньше, в зависимости от ситуации, когда нам нужно больше мотивировать, либо меньше мотивировать. Тут вопрос принципа. Имеем ли мы там право платить каким-либо людям, если они оказались в такой ситуации, как какая-то часть общества. И вот моя позиция, что мы не можем так поступать, потому что, по сути дела, государство тем самым тратит не на общие цели, как, например, когда он строит дороги, которыми могут пользоваться все, а на тратить деньги определенной части населения для стимулирования и улучшения жизни кого-то, при том, что эта жизнь является полной ответственностью этого человека. Если бедный человек не может заработать деньги и нормально обеспечивать своего ребенка, тем самым он должен работать лучше и завести ребенка только тогда, как в Сингапуре, да? Только тогда, когда он сможет себе позволить полностью его образование, а не тогда, когда другие люди, которые были ответственны, заработали большое количество денег, заплатили налоги, обеспечивают его ту самую неответственность по отношению к своей собственной жизни, по отношению к тем детям, которые у него есть.
And what's your name?
My name Felix.
Felix. All right. Alexandra, though she's spoken before, since she's a mother of 4, we're going to give her the right to reply. Go ahead.
Во-первых, благодарю предыдущего выступающего человека, что вы оплачиваете моих детей. Во-первых, здесь вопрос очень сложный и достаточно широкий, постараюсь кратко. Женщине лучше рожать до определенного возраста. Дети будут здоровыми, женщина остается здоровая, снижаемость смертности у ребенка, у матери. Дальше. Во многих странах женщина, когда родила ребенка, она должна буквально через 3 месяца выйти на работу. В нашей стране до 1,5 лет я получала с каждым ребенком 40% от своей зарплаты. Если я хорошо зарабатывала до рождения ребенка, это денег достаточно, чтобы спокойно с ним сидеть дома и воспитывать его. Выплаты за, не то что за ребенка, а поддерживающие многодетных семей позволяют матери, опять же, быть дольше с ребенком, до 3 лет, допустим. Этот период, этот возраст очень важен для развития ребенка полноценного, чтобы мать была рядом. И у меня, допустим, 4 детей. Одну секундочку. Мы получили и материнский капитал, и выплаты денежные на приобретение квартиры, как молодая семья, и различные пособия. В настоящий момент, я не знаю, наверное, это помогло нам. Я в настоящий момент учусь на магистратуре, я меняю, улучшаю свое образование. У нас есть квартира, которая сдается в наем. Это позволяет растить полноценных детей, и воспитывать детей требует много денег.
All right, but you still have to answer, Alexander. That's very powerful. But you still have to answer one argument of principle that Felix made. He said, encouraging families to have more children is not a role of the state or the society. The state or the society should promote public goods like building roads and facilities that everyone uses, not trying to influence the size of families. What do you say to that argument?
Я хочу еще сказать, помимо этого аргумента, тут говорилось, что бедные семьи из-за материального стимулирования будут иметь больше детей. Бедные семьи, бедные люди, ну, не знаю, там, алкоголики, наркоманы, они не заботятся о контроле рождаемости, у них детей по 5, по 10, и потом их забирает государство в детские дома, и за эти же детские дома платят налогоплательщики.
All right, but you have a different argument, I think. That you, may I help?
Yes.
Don't you? Isn't your reply? Don't you to? Is it Felix? Isn't your reply that encouraging larger families is a public good, not just an individual good? Isn't that part of your argument?
Я думаю, что это является добром для всей страны, поскольку 2 человека должны после себя произвести потомство не менее 2 человек для компенсации своего существования математически.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So a quick reply, Felix. Go ahead. You can reply.
Нет, потому что это является объективацией, что люди кому-то что-то должны, что люди должны что женщина должна там рожать и иметь детей. Это абсолютно неправда. Каждый человек может распоряжаться своим телом, и мы также, там, если рассматривать в рамках российского общества, не должны поощрять рождение ребенка, чтобы не активировать роль женщины в рамках консервативного российского общества.
All right. The debate is heating up. But it's heating up in a very interesting way because it's taken us to a really fundamental question of political philosophy, which is the choice between 2 principles about the role of the state and of the society. Should it be to let people make their own private decisions about what size families to have? That's a private choice, Felix says, not a public concern. Or is increasing the number of children born and the size of families a public good, not just a private choice? So we have here 2 very different views about the role of the state and the society with regard to individual choice. What's a private choice? What's a public choice, or a choice with public implications? And so I want to thank everyone who's joined in this discussion about the incentives for families for having children. And notice a couple of things about the arguments that we've had. Lying just beneath the surface of these debates are strongly held, sometimes passionately held, views about political philosophy, about the role of the state and the individual, as we've just seen in this exchange between Alexandra and Felix, and also, to think back to the earlier part of our debate, also competing views about the effect of market valuation and exchange, buying and selling stuff, on intrinsic motivations or non-market norms and values. Sometimes, and this was the worry of those who opposed paying kids to read, sometimes money or financial incentives can change the meaning and the value of the goods being exchanged. Economists have found that this often happens in the world. Let me give you one small but famous example. There were some daycare centers in Israel that had a familiar problem. At the end of the day, some parents came late to pick up their children. And some of the teachers had to stay until the late arriving parents came. So with the help of some economists, they did an experiment. They established a fine for late arrivals. What do you suppose happened? More parents came late. Now, from the standpoint of standard economic analysis, this is a paradox, a puzzle. Normally, putting a price on an activity or a good, or raising the price, leads fewer people, not more people, to avail themselves of that good or social practice. So what happened here? Well, what do you think? Who has some idea of what happened here? Yes, the woman in the middle. Stand up, yeah.
My name is Tatiana. I think that the reason why they came late is that now, as they pay a fine, they have the right to come late because now their children, the hours their children stay in their daycare, they are paid for them. For this reason, they have they don't have a moral burden of coming late and keeping the people who work there late. They pay the fine, so they have a right to arrive later.
Very good. Okay, I think what Tatiana says explains what happened. That before, when parents came late, they felt guilty. They felt they were imposing on the teacher. But now that they could pay a fine, they treated the fine as if it were a fee. I suppose a babysitting fee. And who feels guilty about paying a babysitting fee? Now they were able to pay for arriving late, and the guilt went away. Now, some economists have looked at this case and said, the moral of the story is simply that the fine was too low. And they're right to this extent. If the fine were raised to $1 million for arriving late, probably no parents would arrive late. But in a way, that reply misses the point. Because the real moral of the story is that putting a price on a late arrival changed the meaning, the moral and social meaning of showing up late, which illustrates the same point that came out in the debates we were having, at least among those who worry about paying kids to read or parents to have kids. The worry is that sometimes using money will change the meaning of the good. Another experiment was done by the same economists of a charitable activity engaged in by high school students one day each year. Donation Day, it was called. Every year, students would go door to door raising funds for charitable purposes. One year, they divided the students into 3 groups. The first group was given a motivational speech about the importance of the charities they were raising money for, and they were sent on their way. The second group was given the same speech, but offered a 1% commission on all the funds they raised. The third group was given the speech, but offered a 10% commission. Which group do you think raised the most money for charity? What do you just shout out? The first? The last? The 1%? No, not the 1%. Number 1, you think number 1. The first group raised the most money. Now, here again, from the standpoint of economic analysis, this is a puzzle. Because standard economics often assumes that motivations are additive. They can just be added up. So whatever charitable motivation students had would be simply increased if you add on top of it a financial incentive. Now, it is true that those who were paid a 1% commission raised less than those paid a 10% commission. There, the standard price effect held. But those who were paid no commission raised more money than those even who were paid a 10% commission. Why? Well, probably for the reason that Tanya gave to the daycare example. The offer of the money changed the meaning of the activity. It now became a job. The financial incentive crowded out or corrupted the intrinsic, charitable, civic incentive. Another illustration of the power of money sometimes to crowd out or to corrupt non-market norms worth caring about. What can we learn from these examples and from the debates we've had? Well, we can learn something about a defect in standard economic thinking. Economists often assume that markets are inert, that they do not touch or taint or change the meaning or value of the goods being exchanged. This may be true in the case of material goods, cars, toasters, flat-screen televisions. If you sell me a flat-screen television or give me it as a gift, it will work just the same either way. But the same may not be true when markets and market thinking and market values extend their reach into non-material domains, human relations, teaching and learning, family life. In these domains, introducing market incentives may change and may crowd out or corrupt intrinsic goods worth caring about. There's a second assumption that often goes unexamined by economists. It's the utilitarian idea that all values can be translated into a single uniform measure of value. typically money. I learned this wasn't true with a personal experience back when I was a graduate student. I was studying in the UK at Oxford. And in those days, they still had some all-male and all-women's colleges. And the all-women's colleges had rules against overnight male guests. But times were, these rules, by the way, were rarely enforced and easily violated, or so I was told. Pressure grew to relax these rules, and there was a debate on the faculty of St. Anne's College, which was one of these all-women's colleges. The reformers wanted to allow overnight male guests. The conservatives were opposed on traditional moral grounds. They wanted to protect the virtue of the women who were, they felt their responsibility. But they were embarrassed to give the real reason for their objection, the virtue argument. So they translated their argument into utilitarian terms. They said if we allow overnight male guests, the costs to the college will increase. How, you might wonder? Well, they said they'll want to take baths, and that'll use up hot water. Furthermore, they said, we'll have to change the mattresses more often. So the reformers met their objections by adopting the following compromise. Each woman could have 3 overnight male guests each week, provided the guest paid 50 pence to defray the cost to the college. The next day, the national newspaper had a headline that read, "St. Anne's girls, 50 pence a night," which so embarrassed the college that they got rid of the rule altogether. The moral of the story is that the language of virtue didn't translate very well into the language of utility and money. There's a final assumption of mainstream economics that is called into question by the debate we've just had. Many defenders of using markets to solve all social problems rely on one further assumption. And this is the assumption that non-market values and moral sentiments like altruism, sympathy, benevolence, virtue are scarce resources that need to be conserved. Let me give you an example. Some years ago, there was a debate about a book written by a British sociologist about blood donation systems. In the UK, blood could not be bought and sold, only donated. In the US, a more market-driven society, you could either donate blood or you could sell it on the market. The book argued that the British system worked better in practice, but also had an ethical advantage. According to the author, once you allow the buying and selling of blood, you corrupt or crowd out the gift relationship, the altruism embodied in giving a gift. A famous economist challenged this finding. And he argued that ethical behavior is a commodity that needs to be conserved. Here's what he wrote. Like many economists, I do not want to rely too heavily on substituting ethics for self-interest, because I think it is best that the requirement of ethical behavior be confined to those circumstances where the price system breaks down, we do not wish to use up recklessly the scarce resources of altruistic motivation. So the idea is this, that altruism and generosity are in fixed supply, as if by nature, like the supply of fossil fuels. The more we use, the less we have. That's the idea. And an earlier economist who developed this idea said that what economists really do is help societies economize on the scarcest resource of all, which he said was love. By relying on markets for more and more aspects of life, he said, we conserve that scarce resource, love, and that's how economists contribute to moral life. To those not steeped in economics, this is a strange way of thinking about virtue. It ignores the possibility that our capacity for love and benevolence is not depleted with use, but enlarged with practice. Think of a loving couple. If over a lifetime they ask little of one another in hopes of hoarding or conserving their love, how well would they fare? Wouldn't their love deepen rather than diminish the more they called upon it? Would they really do better to treat one another in more calculating fashion to conserve their love for the times they really needed it? Similar questions can be asked about social solidarity and civic virtue. Should we try to conserve these goods? Or do they atrophy and diminish with disuse? Aristotle taught that virtue is something we cultivate with practice. We become just by doing just acts, temperate by doing temperate acts. We learn virtue, he thought, by doing it. The economistic view of virtue fuels the faith in markets and propels their reach into aspects of life where they don't belong. Altruism, generosity, solidarity, and civic spirit, these are not like commodities that are depleted with use. They're more like muscles that develop and grow stronger with exercise. One of the defects of allowing market values to define every aspect of life is that it lets these more generous virtues languish, which goes back to the point at which we began. We are not very good these days in our societies in reasoning together in a spirit of civility and generosity and mutual respect, reasoning together about hard ethical questions. We shrink from those questions in public discourse. And so public life becomes empty and hollow. Increasingly, it fails to address the questions that people really care about, including big ethical questions about what makes for a just society and about what we owe one another as citizens. I think that what our debate here today has offered is an example of what reasoned, respectful, sometimes passionate, but civil discourse about some big ethical questions can look like. And if that's true, it sets an example for the kind of morally robust, morally engaged kind of civic discourse that can, if practiced in all of our societies, help make this world a better place. And for that, I thank you very much.